There is not a single e-commerce platform that espouses B2B capabilities that doesn't say what their platform is the best. And so how do we go about sorting through these different type of applications? Look at the features. Is this possible? How in the world do we really do that? And at the end of the day, most B2B capabilities on most e-commerce platforms really do the trick. I mean, they're reasonable, they will work. But there are some very significant differences in these platforms as far as how they do that, which really comes back to both you and your customers, both the administration time for you as well as your customers and how easily they can use the admin panel or make purchases on their site. So in this video, we're going to look at both Adobe Commerce B2B Edition as well as the BigCommerce B2B Edition, and we're going to see the differences that are associated in this. There's such a wide variety of features. I can't necessarily take this time to investigate every single thing. You'd be bored. You'd want to go probably be watching another YouTube video by now or shortly. So we're going to boil it down to some of the most major aspects of this, as well as a tour through the process, how it works on both Adobe Commerce as well as BigCommerce. I call this the battle of the B2B editions simply because everybody claims to have the best B2B control panel. They're all the best. So how do we as merchants try to figure out which one is right for ourselves? And that is what I aim to do here in this video. In this video, I'm going to give you the 5-cent tour so that you can understand for yourself. Make that decision for yourself. We pull off these layers of marketing hype and we get down to the raw truth. As both an expert on Adobe Commerce and BigCommerce B2B on both, I'm going to walk you through what I see as my favorite features on both sides. To be honest, there's some great stuff on both sides, and so I think you're going to be happy with either one. But at the end of the day, there are still some very major differences that are going to probably influence your decision in one way or the other, especially if you are a B2B brand. Now, the cool thing is with both of these, there are other opportunities past just a B2B merchants utilizing this, and we're going to try to throw a little bit of those in there. This is going to be a bit of a more lengthy video because it's going to be more tutorial style as far as how these different features operate, how they interact with each one of our users. So with that said, let's jump in for this tour. Why not? Okay, so we have on the Adobe Commerce side here, this is Adobe Commerce, Luma. We have several different pages here in the customer account. Our company profile just gives a overview of this. These fields are editable. Company credit allows us to see what we've been spending. So it's kind of like a statement of our expenditures. We have our company structure, which is a really fancy tree view where you can add users, you can have teams, you can have people report to each other. It's literally, you can build out your org chart right here in this page. I think that's pretty nifty. We have our company users. It's more of a flat list. And inside of each one of these users, we can select what role they operate as well as active or non-active. It's kind of like a bit of a Magento admin, but here on the front end for people to utilize. We have roles and permissions. So we can set our role, and here's all the options they have. And I'll be honest, BigCommerce does not have this level of granularity with their permissions. So I would say this is something that Adobe Commerce does better than BigCommerce in this way. We also have approval rules. And this is pretty interesting because these approval rules allow administrators to say any order over 50, or in this case, actually 60, requires an approval from who? So the purchaser's manager, their default user, and this is where that tree view of the org chart comes in. Very handy. The default of a default user, you can create different, well, again, that's where these roles and permissions come in as well. So it's pretty granular as far as how this control panel works. Now, that's on the Adobe Commerce side. BigCommerce has something that I find very attractive, and that is that it is like they call it a control panel. It is a area specifically and only geared for B2B. What happens is we click here, and we're going to go back to our main page, and we can click on account, and that immediately pulls up this window. Now, BigCommerce is making this customizable on the front end, so that developers can get in here and actually make changes, which I think is super awesome as well. But right here, we see our My Orders, company orders, so basically who else in the company has placed an order. We see our invoices. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Quotes, shopping lists, etc. We have user management, which, as we will see here, we can add new users, but the role is much simpler. And so if a very fine granular control is something that is critical, then that might be something that pushes you on the Adobe Commerce side, just because these are fairly generic. They work, but it's fairly generic. One thing to note is the junior buyer, the big difference between junior and senior buyers is that junior cannot place the order themselves. Senior buyers can place an order, and we're going to talk about how that works when it comes to purchase orders and workflows. So this is kind of, again, the really quick tour of the B2B edition control panel versus the Adobe Commerce. And I forgot to mention that we have quotes, purchase orders, and orders all up here. So it kind of all lives in a much bigger panel on the Adobe side and a more concise, slimmed down area on the BigCommerce side, which to my opinion creates a much better user experience. So with that said, the actual purchasing process on both is basically the same, right? You go through and place your order. It's basically the same. There's very little difference here, but there's a couple of things that we need to talk about as far as how we can go through this process. We're going to talk also then later, just so you know, about configuration. There's a lot of configuration settings, and we're going to look at how those play into this. But again, this is the first aspect, is just reviewing the basic functionality, native capabilities, and then we're going to start looking as far as what can be changed of that. So in this type of a scenario, we have purchase orders. BigCommerce versus Adobe Commerce, they take very different approaches to this. BigCommerce, well, actually, let me start with Adobe Commerce. Adobe Commerce is very powerful. As I mentioned earlier, when somebody places an order as a purchase order, it actually goes through this approval mechanism. So orders over 50 require a company administrator to review this. You can create it based off of shipping details or whatever. The rule is fairly flexible. So the way it works is that our junior buyer, and let me pull this up here. Our junior buyer goes through the process, and it says your purchase order has been submitted for approval. Then the administrator or the manager comes over here into my purchase orders, requires my approval. We see we have one here. We can view this, and then we can approve the purchase order. Once it is approved, it goes into the system then as an order, ready for processing. We can reject it. We can add comments. This is really powerful, I would say, because all the payment information has been set. Everything is ready to go. The address, etc. It's all ready to go, but then it requires a final approval. So this is one area that I would say Adobe Commerce does very well with as well. On the BigCommerce side, it is definitely a little bit different. BigCommerce, we have junior buyers. And these junior buyers, if we come over here, I'm logged in here, they can create a quote. So I have added one of these items to the quote. I've zoomed in a little bit much here. Let's zoom out. Here we go. So I've added one of these to the quote. I think 3 of these. We can go and, add some more products if we want. I think we already added that terrarium. So we'll go into the kitchen, come into here, click right here, add to quote. We do see as well a finished quote right here. Button down here, we can open the quote, pops this back up, and we now have our quote. We can put a message in there. Hey, please approve, whatever we want to put on here. We can add other products to the quote right in this window, which is, again, very handy. But when we're ready to place this order, what happens is we submit this quote. The quoted was submitted. Okay, then we come back over to the BigCommerce side, click on quotes, and we see that right here we have a quote that is ready for approval. So when we are ready to approve this, we would go click on proceed to checkout, and then these items are added to the cart, and we then can place the order appropriately. So it kind of bypasses the need for approval rules, because in a case like this, it's automatically bumped up to the manager or company admin, a senior buyer of one sort or another. And then that senior buyer is the person that places the order. At the end of the day, it is definitely a little bit more work for these senior buyers, but it kind of negates the need for approval rules. So might BigCommerce have approval rules in the future? Yeah, probably. Would it provide value? Yes, but it's not like as critical as the way that Adobe Commerce has built it in. So at the end of the day, I see this being a nice feature, but it's certainly not a critical feature and could provide some value. So this is the purchase orders. Again, fairly simple on both Adobe Commerce as well as BigCommerce. Another feature is the ability to quickly order products. If you're a B2B user, you're going to go order these paper clips or staples or reams of paper, whatever it is. You'll probably do that on a regular basis, maybe every month. Both have a quick order panel. We can search for a SKU. In this case, it's let's see here, jacket. Maybe we're placing orders for jacket every month. So we have a drop-down list here. That's helpful. We'll choose this one. And then, well, actually, it looks like we can't do it if we have options on here. But on the BigCommerce side, we can come over to quick order. And here's one of my favorite features I absolutely love about this is we are able to quickly order. I'm going to zoom out again a little bit more. We are able to quickly order things we've already ordered in the past. And again, for B2B buyer, if you're coming back repeatedly, you don't want to go find this product on the website over and over again. You just come right here to this control panel and add it to your cart. Simple as that. Super fast and super easy. Both products offer requisition lists or ordering lists. You basically can create a list of products. It's kind of like a gift registry or wish list. It's same technology on the Adobe Commerce side for that powers those three items. The BigCommerce side, again, you have the shopping list, and you can create these and then you can have them ordered as well. So from a basic standpoint, both Adobe Commerce and BigCommerce get the job done. But there are some important differences, and we start seeing those in the configuration. In fact, when I'm learning a area of a tool, going into the configuration is, I find, one of the best ways to learn it, because yes, we can click through and on the front end, we can see the cool things it does there, but there's often a lot of functionality that is hidden on the back end. And that's where I think we should go here and now. Okay. So we are here in Adobe Commerce looking at the configuration of this of the Adobe Commerce B2B edition. It's all can be enabled or disabled, whether you enable company functionality, shared catalog. And this is one of the things I'm not going to really delve into in this. It is B2B related, but not exclusively. So shared catalogs on the Adobe side is the ability to load a set of products into a catalog. Basically, we have negotiated pricing on this. We have limited down our supply of products to this one company that, again, highly negotiated pricing. And thus, we're able to make it very easy for them to see what has already been approved. For example, if your company sells headsets, then you have, say, your company uses headsets, and there's 5,000 buyers here, and you have 5 headsets approved for use. Well, then at the end of the day, you only want your buyers to be able to choose from those 5 that you have negotiated. But beyond this, we have the ability to generate quotes. So in both sides, it can work from, the quote can be generated now as of 2/4/6 on Adobe Commerce, and it's just automatically there on BigCommerce. You can generate a quote on the front end or the back end. A customer can say, hey, give me these products for a quote, give me a better price on them. Or on the back end, administrator can be on the phone and say, okay, let's work out these products, and we're going to generate a quote off of this. Honestly, those are very similar in functionality. There's hardly any reason to look through this. They both work. There's a couple of minor differences, but at the end of the day, the general basic functionality is set there, and it's pretty simple. All right, so then we have, this is just a configuration option, enable quick order requisition list. All of this is fairly straightforward. Couple things that are different here. So on the B2B on Adobe Commerce, you can set the default payment methods that are available for these companies. So we can axe or select payment methods that are only available, as well as shipping methods. Now, on the BigCommerce side, that's just not possible to do shipping methods. And we're going to look at the BigCommerce differences here shortly. Again, on the Magento side, our Adobe Commerce, we can select whether we enable approval configurations. Now, this also then has to be based off this message. This has to be enabled for each individual company as well. Here's the thing. Let's look over on the BigCommerce side. This is the dashboard in the B2B edition. You'll find that here we have our main area for apps. We can click into apps, B2B edition, and we'll find it right here. So this is what I would consider to be a nice feature. So Adobe Commerce, it's integrated into the platform nicely, but everything is kind of segregated. You're going to see a company's dashboard. You see a customer's area, but actually the company doesn't have any listing of customers, right? So it's all there, but it's also it's kind of scattered. In the case of the B2B edition, it's all in one control panel. And I like that. Personally, that's something I feel like reduces the complexity of management here. Let's come down to the settings area and let's browse through what settings that the B2B edition on BigCommerce allows for us to do. All right, so for new company requests, we have email notifications. We can send that. We have enable automatic approval. Surprisingly, on Adobe Commerce, there is no way to automatically approve a company or let this company become a purchaser. That is a manual process that is done when a customer registers. So that's not too big of a deal for a developer to overcome that, but it's just not an option there. Now we can require approval for these specific areas. Price list on the BigCommerce side is equivalent to shared catalog or customer group on the Adobe Commerce side. They're basically similar in idea as far as how they function. Again, there's not a huge amount of necessity to actually dive into how those work. A very small difference is how they're selected as far as categories are selected on the BigCommerce side. But otherwise, it's very similar. We have the default payment methods, but you'll notice there's no default shipping methods here. One thing that I really like about BigCommerce, and it's a small feature, but it goes a long ways, is you can share addresses that you have created. An administrator can share addresses across the different accounts. So we can have here in addresses, you can enter in all the franchises or all the company locations, and then your buyers can then ship to those different locations. Maybe perhaps an even better way to do it would be to be able to assign different customers or different buyers to a different location. And that would be a cool feature to have, but I'm not aware of that coming. So that's just not available on the Adobe Commerce side. You can't share addresses. Every user has their own addresses. Of course, we have our store logo controlling this features on and off and the registration. One thing you will notice as well is that BigCommerce has very much adopted this idea of customization. So we have our buyer portal. That's really nice. The login page, we can add some text there. And eventually all this is going to be able for developers to customize every single aspect of this. Now, going through here, we have our quotes. We have some features available for this. Quote request for guest user, individual company. That's all pretty straightforward. Terms and conditions, etc. All that is fairly straightforward. Again, some customizations here. All that's, again, quite straightforward. Shopping lists, more customizations for this. It's fairly simple. Invoices is where this starts getting pretty interesting. Adobe Commerce supports net terms, and we can come over to our company account right here, and we can see we have company credit that's available. But the idea is, do you allow the customer to exceed the credit limit or not? Adobe Commerce is more about reporting the customer status as opposed to being also a payments platform. BigCommerce is literally a payments platform. It allows you to issue an invoice and then receive payment against that. Adobe Commerce just does not do that. So there is this idea of a balance, and you can have the balance be reimbursed. All this is API accessible, so you can tie it in with your ERP, etc. But this is an area that BigCommerce really shines quite nicely over Adobe Commerce, because Adobe Commerce reports this information, but it doesn't take it any further. BigCommerce has all the capability, all the controls to do that. Thus, the invoicing is very powerful. And obviously you can then accept payments. Now take a look at this. Here's the invoice portal. Again, does not exist on Adobe Commerce. We have our invoice that is here and available. We can print off this as a PDF, a super nice feature. And then we can also go pay it. When we pay it, it takes us to the checkout page. And we can see that this is added in as a product, one invoice payment, $12.96, and we can then go and set this up. Notice that there's a billing address only. There's no shipping address because this is a virtual product that we are paying for. The product has already been delivered. So I'm really impressed with this, and I think this is a fantastic feature that is going to be well used. So we are proceeding through looking at the B2B portal and how this functions on BigCommerce. Now we looked at Adobe Commerce, and we're looking at BigCommerce now. We have all the emails can be easily customized. Yeah, that's the same as Adobe Commerce. We have checkout. Some features here. We're using the B2B checkout, but we can insert a different type of checkout if we would like. Some controls over shipping and saving addresses, the purchase order payment method as well, additional payment field text as well. So we can put a reference number, etc. Now, this is something that I find exceptionally cool on BigCommerce B2B edition. We can create extra fields here. And I think that's really a neat feature. So we can add those to the address, same as Adobe Commerce. We can add this to the customer. But we can also have the business account sign up fields. We can create different fields for different applications. That's really fancy. But look at this. We can create extra fields on an order as well, on a company as well, for an invoice as well. This is stuff that takes a lot of extra time and customization on Adobe Commerce, and it's already built out on the BigCommerce side. I think that's pretty cool. Literally, to add a new field into checkout, we create a new field. Now, I will say one thing that's slightly interesting on this is shows up as an order comment. So we have the order comments box, and it's basically just text line items in there. I really would have liked to see that be a little bit more rich, or the capability to add this in as different columns in the order display. It kind of seems like a bit of a workaround, but in my opinion, it's still better than Adobe Commerce, because at Adobe Commerce, it takes a lot of work to add these fields in. So that's pretty much the overview of the configuration. So let's take a quick look as far as the administration side of both of these. And then we're gonna wrap this up. Again, my goal is this is a quick educational video. We've taken a bit of your time to walk through this. I hope you find this engaging, interesting. Let's go over here to companies and all customers. So at a company level, we can see, we're gonna click into this, edit. We can see company name, of course, the account information, company admin. One thing to note is this is basically fields from the customer itself, that is the company admin. So I can change the field values here, and it will be reflected over on the customer account as well. So I don't find this particularly useful here. Company credit, we've already taken a quick look at that. We can reimburse the balance when they pay us $5,000. We can go notate that up here manually. And then we have advanced settings. So what price list, what customer group is this going to use? Quotes, are we going to allow them to request quotes? Enable purchase orders, same thing. However, we can also select different payment methods or shipping methods for this company. That's basically company administration. Customers are literally no different than any other customer at that point. Now, on the BigCommerce side, it's a little bit different. And again, the functionality is generally speaking a bit more rich. So we have a couple of options here, and we see that our company here has been approved. We see our price list, shared catalog on the Magento side. We have our company information that we can edit. Company users, which again, does not exist on the Adobe Commerce side. We can select what username is, what we can add users, customize users here. Super admin. And here's another feature that Adobe does not have at this point is sales staff. So we can create limited access users that just have access to these specific companies. So they still have a BigCommerce login, but they then have a separate sales staff login. This allows you to create sales managers, salespeople that are specifically focused on nurturing unique accounts, and they don't see anybody else's accounts. I think that's pretty attractive. We have payment methods. You can select which ones you want there. Address book, as well as attachments. The customer can upload like their tax certifications or whatever other documents that you want here. So then the administration staff can look at this. I find this a really nice, healthy way to look at customers or companies. I would love to see shipping methods, but at the end of the day, I don't think shipping methods really are that valuable, like controlling which shipping methods companies are going to be using. The order screen is right here. We can view those. We have our invoice management, super admin, sales staff, etc. So it's kind of like a separate area workflow, segregated off somewhat from the main area as far as from an administration perspective goes. And again, I think that just makes a lot of sense overall. Finally, I want to give you a brief overview as far as what I see as the value, the features on both sides of this tool. Take a look at this. So on the BigCommerce side, we have a nice centralized dashboard, signing salespeople to company. That's a big deal, I think. Really good invoice payments and net terms, automatic company approval. That's a small thing, but for some companies, this could be a big time saver. Shared company addresses, again, seems like a small thing, but it's a time saver. We have a checkout and account fields. That is really nice. On the Adobe side, we have the powerful order approval rules. Again, this will look really sexy to your, especially as you're working with larger companies. That's going to look really nice to them. And BigCommerce is just not targeting that as much. And I think even at that point, you could boil it down to their target audience. Adobe is working to move up market. They're picking up, well, I'm not saying that they are not there for mid-market. They're definitely working to target more enterprise. Well, BigCommerce is doing that as well. It's just not as much. Mid-market has really been their bread and butter. They're focusing on it. They love it. They're working hard to continue that. So even in that way, we see some of the targeting capabilities here. Per company shipping method control, as well as we did not dive too deeply into this at all. Well, actually, we didn't. But there are better category permissions. On the Adobe side, it's easier to control which categories are enabled versus disabled for a given price list. Depending on how it's structured, this could be helpful. And so this could be a area that the Adobe does shine as well. So this is what I hope to be a very unbiased opinion as far as a A/B comparison, literally an Adobe Commerce versus BigCommerce, a perspective of how these tools work. They're complicated. They're both very powerful. At the end of the day, I don't think you will be disappointed by choosing either. But I will say, after a thorough review, I think BigCommerce comes out hands down a winner in this. And one thing I'm also going to throw out here, Adobe Commerce is open source. BigCommerce is what they call open SaaS. We can just say it's SaaS, software as a service. It's black box. You can't customize it as easily. Now, the deal is with Adobe Commerce, every line of code can be customized, but that also comes at the cost of technical debt. Every line of customization here means that the software becomes less stable, just because there's less thoroughly tested code, if you know what I'm saying there. So at the end of the day, Adobe Commerce tends to be more expensive, perhaps even significantly more expensive to maintain. What we have personally seen ourselves after maintaining a lot of websites. For some merchants, it's the cost of doing business. But in a lot of cases, this is where BigCommerce does shine. It still is capable of being customized. The whole buyer portal that we just saw is going to be open sourced here very shortly. So all of that can be customized. And so what I see is that BigCommerce in a lot of ways is the best of both worlds. It kind of gets rid of all these touch points that become very expensive to maintain. But at the same point, it gives you the right amount of customization in just the right ways. And I like that. I really like that. So while I am unbiased, I definitely have found myself leaning towards BigCommerce just because of the feature set, capabilities, as well as the right levels of customization. Not the case for every merchant, but at the end of the day, there's many merchants that this will fit very well into their overall business plan.